Good morning, everybody. Well, Alexander said something like, if you keep on doing the same thing, you'll never do anything different. And I have to say, I was beginning to bore myself in my teaching room, being rather teachy. So I'm out here on Dartmoor on my way to collect Ollie and Ruth from a muddy field again. And I thought I'd have another crack at explaining wings. Beautiful, wonderful wings. I'm going to start again with a little bit of body mapping and show you what to me and looks like a perfectly reasonable caricature of a human being. But as you've probably guessed, it's not all true. It's certainly not all true. We already know that the head isn't oval from top to bottom, but from front to back. And we're going to discover that something about where the arms join onto the torso. In this particular instance, it looks as if they join onto the torso at this point here. I have a little friend who can help me, who hasn't been in this state of undress for nearly 60 years. Here's a Canon Barbie shoulder. And, well, don't know about the head. And he's had new paws. So it's very easy to imagine that we articulate our arms somewhere on the torso like that. And of course, as you will guess, that's not at all the case. Here is a beautiful albinus drawing again, showing that the only place where the arm structure, which includes the collarbone at the front and the shoulder blade at the back and all those wonderful long arm bones, humerus, radius, ulna, and countless little bones in the hand, we are in fact oval shaped in our ribs as well, almost egg shaped really, a tiny little ring of ribs high up at the top that then get longer and wider as they come up to the bottom, down to the bottom in fact. There are some cyclists going by. It's a wonderful area of Dartmoor that I'm on here. So the rib cage is egg-shaped, and you can see that the head of the humerus, the long arm bone, sits well outside of the torso. The torso diminishes as it comes up to the neck and widens at the base, but the arm, the shoulder joint itself, sits outside of the ribs, well outside. So we just do a little experiment. If you find the inner knobble of your collarbone somewhere here, and you bring your arm out to the side and just feel when the collarbone starts to move. In fact, I can feel mine starting to swivel with the tiniest movement of my arm, but I'm not going to get any further than 90 degrees before I have to actually turn my arm a little bit and come all the way up, and there we are. There's the other end of my collarbone, pretty much. So this is another wonderful drawing showing the side view of the rib cage, the back, front, and the arm moving forward. What happens is that this whole shoulder blade slides and glides around the rib cage to be able to place the tiny little shallow socket of the scapula, which is where the top of the arm bone articulates, to place it in countless planes and directions so that we have such freedom and mobility. It's not a stable joint in terms of bony connection. The stability is provided by straps and muscles, which is when I shall start to talk about wing structure. So we have a sort of bony structure that is very loose and free and barely attached at all, and then we're going to have muscles that will, if you like, come on in layers and show where those connections are. Here we go. So the huge latissimus muscle, which joins in at the tailbone and comes all the way up to the inside of the arm with a sort of a twist. That's the muscle that you see standing out in a ridge on gymnasts when they do ring work and horse work. So the latissimus is a massive muscle that creates part of the wing, and it extends as far as the tailbone. So if you think about it, from the tips of the fingers all the way through the arm and down to the tailbone, that is the extent of the wing structure. In birds, of course, this is all filled in with feathers and muscles, but in our bony structure, the bony structure isn't all that different, just the muscular structure. And then we have trapezius, which is this kite-shaped muscle that comes from the back of the head across to the point of the shoulder, and then in a V, a deep V, to the 12th thoracic vertebra. That's just above where the lumbar spine starts, right at the junction of the lumbar with the thoracic spine, and back up and out again to the other shoulder. So arms finish their muscular journey at the tail and encompass most of the back. So when you hear that somebody is playing from their back, they're playing from their wings, and they're supported by the skeletal structure with their sitting bones. Did I hear somebody say ischoid bones? Something like that. Sitting bones on the chair through to the floor. Skeletal structure, muscular structure. Oh yes, and then at the front we have the pectoralis major. Again, by its connections through to the hand, and then just on the inside of the rib, I don't know if you can see it, this little feathery, oh, I've got black fingernails from mucking around in the peat. The serratus anterior is that feathery muscle that you also see on magnificent gymnasts when they're doing ring work, and this is all wing structure. So we have this marvellous full extent, back and front, of wings. What's the significance of that? I ask myself. Well, as we looked at ducktail, dogtail, chinhead, and strut, slump and sigh, all of those things affect the fabric of the wings. So any kind of shortening, any kind of compression in the spine is going to draw those wings into the side and make them less mobile, less flexible, less dexterity. If there's tightness somewhere back here, there's going to be a corresponding loss of freedom of movement right at the tips of our wings. Anything else? Oh yes, there's a beautiful picture here of one side of latissimus. Again, it's a little bit tricky to see in this light, but here's the tailbone, here's the side of the torso, and there's the underside of the upper arm, and here's where latissimus has its kind of extent from the tailbone right up to the 5th thoracic vertebra. And then trapezius, this is the left side of trapezius. So the base of the skull out to the shoulder tip and down to the 12th thoracic vertebra. Latissimus sort of sits more externally. It's the next layer of muscle out towards the surface. So coming in about here and extending all the way down to the tip of the spine, the tail of the spine further along, further down. So if we look now at our not quite accurate person, we're not square, not in the torso. Really, we're egg-shaped. There's the rib cage, the oval head from front to back, but there is the extent of our arms all the way to the tailbone. And incidentally, the final resting place, if you like, of the musculature for the legs is above the final place for the arms. It's right up under the diaphragm. So a hint for another time, if you lock your knees, you will probably end up with a tense diaphragm, which makes it less easy to breathe. That's for singers, another time. Oh, and we've got a lovely wiggly spine which ends in a little tail. So, greetings from Dartmoor, and have a lovely day. And I hope this video makes sense because I'm not doing another one.